Hi students, this lesson is on dividing rational expressions. Before I start with the lesson, I'll quickly write down the answer to the last question from the previous video. The video finished before I could write down the final answer, so that was question number 2, and the answer is 5 over 6x with the restrictions x not equal to -2, x not equal to -3, and x not equal to 0. Okay. So now starting with this lesson on dividing rational expressions, if you recall, division actually means multiplication with the reciprocal. So for example, if we are dividing 2 by 3 divided by 3 by 4, it actually means that we are multiplying 2 by 3 with the reciprocal of 3 by 4, means we switch the numerator and denominator and multiply it by 4 by 3. It's the same thing for rational expression. The division sign changes into multiplication by switching the numerator and the denominator. So division means multiplication with the reciprocal. You'll see that the denominator has become the numerator here and the numerator has become the denominator here. Okay, after that it's pure multiplication. So one step added to multiplication, that means you switch the second rational expression after the division sign, you switch the numerator and denominator, and rather than dividing, you multiply. So for more practice, let's take up this question, and there is another example that we'll take up, and then there's one for you to do. Okay, so you'll see that the numerator is a linear binomial. There is nothing to factor out. Similarly, the numerator of the second rational expression is also a linear binomial, and there is no common factor I can take out. But the denominator here is a cubic trinomial. Here it's a quadratic trinomial. I can use the x method, and here first I need to factor out because there's a variable present in all the three terms. So I'll factor that lowest power of the variable out, which is x to the power 1, and what remains here inside is x square minus 3x minus 4. So if you see just this part alone, it is a quadratic trinomial. I'll use the x method. AC is equal to, let me just, AC is equal to -4, because A is equal to 1, B is equal to -3, and C is equal to -4. So AC is -4 and B is -3. So the two numbers that make -4 and 3, if you do your factors 1 and 4, so you will see that -4 and 1, positive 1, they multiply up to -4 and they add up to -3. So I can split this middle term. Don't forget to copy this x. So this becomes x times, I'll put a square bracket here, x square, the middle term I split, -4x plus x, 1x, and this -4. Okay, so now I pair them up and I write down my factors. So take the x common from here, you get x minus 4, and repeat that factor x minus 4 and copy down that one, making sure 1x minus 4. Okay, so you write down the final factors now, x plus 1, so x times x plus 1 times x minus 4. Okay, so I'm going to just copy those factors here. So I have this trinomial is factored into the is written as a product of x times x plus 1 times x minus 4. Okay, let's get some space here and factor the second denominator now. Okay, so I have x squared plus 5x minus 24, and A is equal to 1, B is equal to 5, C is equal to negative 24. I use the X method, and A times C is a negative 24 and B is a 5. So again, you can factor 24 and you will see that 8 and negative 3 are those two numbers. So 8 and negative 3, the product becomes negative 24 and the sum becomes 5. So I'm going to just write it down, splitting up the middle term. X square plus 8x minus 3x minus 24, and I can pair these up and take the common factor. So both of them have x. I can take the x out. What remains inside is x plus 8, and I repeat this factor x plus 8 and copy down this negative 3, making sure negative 3x minus 24. So my two factors here are x minus 3 and x plus 8. Okay, x minus 3 and x plus 8. Fine. Now I will just start the actual work, which is rewriting my rational expressions in the factored form. Okay, so you have x minus 3 here. The factored form of this cubic trinomial is x plus 1, x minus 4 multiplied by x plus 1 divided by the factored form of this one is x minus 3 times x plus 8. So x minus 3 times x plus 8. Okay, now is the time to put the restrictions. So x cannot be equal to 0 because that's making the denominator 0. X cannot be equal to 0. X cannot be equal to negative 1 because negative 1 plus 1 make this factor 0. So x cannot be equal to negative 1. Anything that is making the denominator 0. X minus 4, if I put it equal to 0, what value of x makes it equal to 0? 4. So 4 minus 4 is 0. So x cannot be equal to 4. So if it is a negative here, take the opposite. So 3 minus 3 makes it a 0. So x cannot be equal to 3. And again, it is a positive 8. So a negative 8 plus 8. Because if you put x plus 8 equals 0, x becomes negative 8. So x cannot be equal to negative 8. So these are my restrictions. Okay, now it's the time to cancel out the common factors. What is common between numerator and denominator? So x minus 3 I have in common. Only numerator and denominator can be cancelled. If you have had x minus 3 in the numerator, again, you couldn't have cancelled two things in the numerator. X plus 1 gets cancelled with x plus 1, and what remains is, so that means there's nothing in the numerator, so there's a 1. So what remains is 1 divided by x minus 4 and x plus 8. So that is my x plus 8. So this is my answer, and these are the restrictions with that answer. Okay, moving on to another example. Once again, you have a division problem. Change it to multiplication by switching this of the second rational expression, write down the reciprocal of that. So the numerator becomes the denominator here, and the denominator becomes a numerator here. So the division sign changes to the multiplication sign. Now let's take it. Let's take the numerator and denominator of each rational expression and factor it. So here you will get the factors. So there is a 2 that goes into 6 and there's a variable. So we take the lower power. So the factors become 2x, and then what remains inside is x minus 3. Similarly here you have 2x can be pulled out. It's a greatest common factor, and what remains inside is x minus 2. You can check 2x square and then minus 4x. And here 4 goes into 16. There's no variable that I can take out. So 4x square minus 4 goes into 16 4 times. But you see, this is a difference between, because 4 is the square of 2. So I can write it down as 4x square minus 2 square. And remember, x square minus a square is x minus a times x plus a. So 4x minus 2 times x plus 2. And then you have this quadratic trinomial. You can do it by the x method. AC is -6, B is -1. So when you do the whole process, you will see the factors are x minus 3 and x plus 2. So just creating some room, I'm going to just erase it and just write down the factors. So 4x minus 2 times x plus 2. So I'll just write it down, 4x minus 2 times x plus 2. Okay, now I'm going to write down all this rational expression numerators and denominators in the simplified form, and I get 2x times x minus 3 here divided by 2x squared. So this is done. 2x times x minus 2 times this one, 4 times x minus 2 times x plus 2, and the last one divided by x minus 3 times x plus 2. Time for putting the restrictions. X cannot be equal to 0. X cannot be equal to positive 2. X cannot be equal to 3 because 3 minus 3 is 0, and x cannot be equal to -2 plus 2 is 0. So x cannot be equal to -2. So these are the restrictions. Okay. And now after this, it's time to cancel stuff. So let's see what gets cancelled here. Just remove this, and you have 2x gets cancelled with 2x, x minus 3 with x minus 3, x minus 2 with x minus 2, and x plus 2 with x plus 2. Wow, I love questions like this. And I have a pretty answer, which is 4, but there are restrictions. So this answer doesn't come alone. It comes with all these restrictions. Okay, guys, I hope these examples have helped you, understand the topic, both multiplication and division. And now there is a question for you. So it's a division question. You're going to flip the second, the numerator and denominator of the second rational expression. So the division sign changes to multiplication, and you will do it carefully. You have the final answer here, and do not forget to put all the restrictions. X is not equal to what, x is not equal to what, however many restrictions are there. So you can do this question and you can discuss it in the live session with me if you did not get it with all of us. And if you do not get this answer, even if you get this answer right, just to confirm what the restrictions are. And I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much, and let's wait what is the next topic in the next video. Bye bye.